Did we even see a big sword in this video? Wait, so you could rent the game, but you couldn't buy it from Blockbuster? Generic intro into That Goes Moo here, back with another What Happened video by McMuscles. Today we're doing Daikatana. I don't know if I said that right. I probably said that completely wrong. It's apparently something by John Romero, who I have no idea who John Romero is. The last name Romero reminds me of what? There's George Romero who did like zombie movies or something like way back in the day, I want to say. But this is gonna be What Happened by Daikatana by John Romero. I don't know. This has been requested for quite a long time. I believe Pierre has been requesting this for quite a while. I do read everyone when it comes to leave them down below. You can check out my reaction to the last What Happened video I did, which was The Room by Tommy Wiseau by Matt McMuscles, or What Happened by Matt McMuscles. You can check out my reaction out. Leave it right up there. Also, link down below in the description, and probably not in a playlist yet, but maybe I'll make a playlist in the future for What Happened videos if you all continue to enjoy these videos, and I hope I can make your day a tiny little bit better. I do read every single one of your comments, so leave them down below, and I hope you're subscribed to some of these future videos. But I've never heard of this. I think it's a game. I think JonTron did a video, which I never heard anybody tell me to watch the JonTron video, and I've reacted to a ton of JonTron videos, so I'm wondering why that is. But let's go ahead and find out what happened to this game I've never heard of. Oh god, there's like something in my eye. Oh, he's not a skeleton.
Another episode of What Happened.
I keep freaking.
The show where we take a stroll through the halls of shame, the corridors of catastrophe, and the basement of bumbles. In the games industry, sometimes things happen, which results in publishers releasing games broken, unfinished, or just plain bad.
Deadlines
And a few
are
games
rushed
exemplify this better than our subject today. Daikatana.
Oh, I said it right.
A story featuring clashing egos, expensive cars, backdoor dealings, firings, hirings, and monumental failure. Well, this one's got it all, my friends.
Who are these people?
Daikatana, or Big Sword in Japanese, is one of the coolest monikers for a video game ever, and that name alone is one of the few that elicits an immediate and visceral reaction.
Why?
It ranges from,
I didn't
oh
know.
God, shut up, Daikatana's the worst, to,
what is this?
What's Daikatana?
Yeah,
and
what is that? What is this?
Get out of my bathroom, Matt!
Oh.
Well, for the uninitiated, it was.
Why does it remind me of Half-Life?
Released in 2000 on the PC with ports on the
2000.
Nintendo 64 and.
Or maybe it's supposed to be like Doom.
The Game Boy Color. Is that right? Game Boy.
I would do double take too.
And directed, produced, and designed by one John Romero. Who is John Romero?
That's an excellent
well,
question.
He's a motherfucking rock star.
Is he?
Now, to make sure to set the scene here, we need to go back to the beginning of this man's career. One that was filled with dizzying heights, terrifying lows,
CEO and lead programmer of Monkey Stone Games.
The early 90s were a fascinating time for the game industry, where developers, especially indie ones, started realizing they could make a lot of money a lot of fast if they were shrewd enough and had the right tech. And Romero had both.
Oh, well, there you go. I mean, he was in the industry,
along with super nerd John Carmack and a few other talented young designers. But Romero was always thinking of the side hustle. Is your fledgling company stuck making boring games for some bland publisher? Well then, use their computers when they're not looking to develop Commander Keen for another company. Carmack's programming wizardry and making capable engines afforded the other members of the team to design their games to move faster and smoother than anything seen on the PC up to that point. They christened themselves id Software and made a few other things you might have heard of: Wolfenstein 3D, Doom 2, Quake.
Doom.
The list is well known.
I know those. I've heard of all of them.
And being critically praised, they were also simultaneously revolutionizing the PC space as well. With that kind of success comes a bit of ego.
Doom 2016, Doom 3, and Doom Eternal.
And money, of course. And like we already hinted, Romero had been full of the former and very quickly gained the latter. However, it became apparent that both Johns had different philosophies on how to handle all this
one used an axe, the other one used a sword.
Carmack was inconspicuous and preferred to be programming away in his spare time, while Romero was a more out there personality, doing interviews, posing like a dork.
This reminds me of,
and of course, indulge in a game developer's favorite pastime when they've hit it big: buying expensive cars. A rift was always kind of there between the two, and around the completion of Quake, which was Romero's first time in the directing chair, things came to a head. The development of Quake, despite winding up as a classic upon completion, was still fraught with a lot of speed bumps. Romero was accused by his bosses at id for not being 100% focused on the project and
yeah,
apparently
you could
led
say.
his team around in circles for months. While this may
Because
be
he
conjecture,
was
it was
working on
true that
something else.
Romero
Yeah, that
did
makes
have
sense.
his time split in other directions, as he was helping Raven Software with Hexen in addition to directing Quake.
Bro!
Within the corporate structure of id, however, Romero felt his desire to push
Okay,
game
everybody else
design
wearing
was
Doom, he's
secondary
wearing
to
Wolfenstein.
just shipping it, and was frustrated that while he wanted to come up with new features and really make Quake all that it
96,
could
I was
be,
not born
he
when
was
this
being
picture was
pressured
taken.
to simply finish it. He was unhappy during the last few months of the development period, so he started the groundwork of setting up his own company, and even invited former id designer Tom Hall to go all in with him.
Okay.
All exact details are sketchy here. It seems
Oh, no.
somehow
That was so
Romero's
long ago.
bosses at id maybe found out about all this, so they just fired him.
That makes sense.
Oh, well, that simplifies matters then.
Yeah, now he can
With
focus
no
on what
longer any
he was
commitment
already
to
focused on.
id, Romero was free to start up his new venture with a name only Rockstar developers could come up with.
Daikatana.
Ion Storm. Now,
Never mind, that looks-
right
sounds like
here,
a roller coaster
let's
name.
play a game of
You know?
pretend. Total fantasy. Let's say you're a famous rich person in the late 90s. You then
no.
quickly decide to spend millions and millions of dollars on your new startup company, right?
Okay.
Remember, you helped make fucking Doom.
That's
You
true.
buy a
Doom was the
22,000 square foot studio, put in fucking koi ponds in your lobby.
He
and
did
hire
not.
coke
Did he actually-
snorting robot maids. Then at a press conference, you tilt down your sunglasses
Who animated
and
this?
say, "Listen up. Our first game's gonna be Daikatana."
Wait,
Drop the
so did they
mic
make more than one
and
game?
let the hype create itself.
Their first
That's
game
a
was
crazy
this?
and outlandish scenario, isn't it?
That's exactly
Well,
what he did.
That's exactly what Romero did when
Even
he
the koi
announced
ponds?
his new project. Except for maybe the koi ponds and robots.
Okay.
That might be true. Daikatana
I like
was
how the
indeed
koi ponds is where I
announced
draw
in
the
early
line.
1997, with a promise that it would see a late Christmas release that year, or early 1998. if
E3 is
things
like
go
May,
really
June.
bad.
I wasn't born when this
Now,
picture was
if you were
taken.
paying attention earlier, you'll remember that Big Sword eventually released in mid-2000.
Oh.
Yeah,
Wait.
things
Wait.
went really bad.
Christmas
So
97?
what happened? Oh, so many things. The first major
Probably
one is that
everything,
it's pretty
actually.
fucking ambitious to start a brand new company in the early stages of fully 3D games, announce that your game exists, and then say it'll be out by the end of the year.
Which is like
if
6
there's
months.
any time things can go wrong and go wrong bad, it's when everyone is still kind of grappling with 3D engines.
What is this
especially
camera angle?
when you no
Why did it
longer
get
have
closer?
your turbo nerd programming gremlin to help you out of a jam. Romero didn't want to be beholden by technology like he felt he
Also,
had been.
why does he
id, with so much
look like
emphasis
somebody?
being placed on the engine, and instead felt it
Well, he
better
is
to
somebody,
license
but-
out pre-existing ones and then focus on the design. With that in mind, he made another really ballsy move. License the Quake engine from id, one that he obviously knew pretty well.
Yeah, I
and
didn't work
off
with that.
that.
How much
Things
did
were
that cost?
progressing fairly well.
I'm surprised they
initially,
worked
but
with him.
after
Must have been a
months
pretty
of
good
development,
offer.
Romero and the rest of Ion Storm
I mean, they fired
realized
him.
that new tech wasn't just coming out of id Software anymore, and other developers were playing catch-up. Now, gameplay-wise, Quake wasn't doing anything drastically new, but its 3D engine certainly
Like, this
did.
was such
It
a
was
big
fast
deal.
and responsive, and everyone else wanted their games to run like that. There was even a developer out there making something called Unreal.
Oh,
Regardless,
that'll never
it
catch
became
on.
clear that Quake's engine was
I know,
fast
I
becoming
know.
antiquated, and Daikatana needed to impress literally
Unreal
everyone
Engine is, like,
in the world
what, the most popular
for it to
game
make
engine?
the impact Romero wanted. Hard to do that on an engine that was already being outclassed by newer ones. They needed something cutting edge, and they needed
okay.
it now. Which did Romero choose?
Working on the
id
cutting
Tech
edge is
2, of course. His former
it's rough,
employer
'cause there's a
put out the
lot
sequel
of
to Quake
bugs and
very fast. In
unproven
fact, it
problems.
released right when Daikatana was supposed to come out in December of 1997. It's pretty wild that id Software, a company Romero felt over time was stifling him creatively, were still the ones that were
They're kind of-
inadvertently pushing him in certain
Yeah,
directions.
he couldn't do it
Still,
without
though,
them.
The feeling was that with Ion Storm's experience working with the original Quake tech, it would make for an easy
I've never
transition
played
to
Quake.
its successor, right? big no.
Oh, big no. Okay,
the two
well.
engines couldn't have been more different, as id Tech 2 was a massive jump forward. Everything would need to be redone, recoded, and worst of all, nothing could be reused. They scrapped everything they had worked on up until that point. This was a massive gamble, as Daikatana was already going to miss its original target release date of 1997, and they'd basically be back to the drawing board if they used id Tech 2. Even if everything went perfectly, the best estimate would be maybe late 1998 for the game to come out. John Romero wanted to have the best-looking game he could, so the dice was rolled. One of the main tenets he wanted the game to adhere to is the Quake he always wanted to make, without the restrictions and timelines of bureaucrats holding him back.
Suits, basically.
He was going to make a first-person shooter, yes, but he would design something id seemingly had no interest in at the time. Something different. Now is a good time as any to talk about what Daikatana, Big Sword actually is.
Also, what was that sword?
One thing we can certainly say for the game is that it has no shortage of
Watch it not have big swords.
Scope and innovation. Taking place in the near future of 2455, our main hero...
They're optimistic.
Hiro Miyamoto...
Pardon the interruption, Miyamoto-san.
Is visited by a gross old man who starts banging on about how cool the fucking Daikatana is and really trying to get the weapon over. He tells of warring Japanese clans fighting throughout the generations to attain
what is this fight scene?
Magic sword.
What is that fight scene?
Betrayals and descendants and time travel and shit. For
I've seen
a first-person shooter in the late 90s or early 2000s in this case, it's an impressively fleshed out story.
Nerf swords.
Not only that, all this narrative comes fully voice acted with in-game cinematics and definitely has its own palatable sense of style. Quite the opposite of id Software games at the time. This rings true since John Carmack famously once said, "Story in a game is like story in a porn
the Doom movie.
It's expected to be there, but it's not important." Which is a pretty profound
also that voice
quote, if you
he
think
just
about
made.
it. I mean,
yeah.
Look, if there's one guy that's watched thousands of millions of hours of porn,
it'd be the code.
It's Carmack.
It'd be the coding
Jokes
guy.
aside, while that sentiment seems pretty harsh and narrow-minded on its own, it's actually way more harsh in context. In the fantastic book Masters of Doom, it was revealed that Carmack said it directly to Tom Hall in a conversation.
Why does bro kind of look like Pennywise a little bit?
To be working on Doom's
maybe it's that camera angle
elements at the time. Mr. Hall quit id soon after. Classic robotic, unfeeling Carmack. Back to Big Sword.
Big Sword. There better be a big sword in this game.
Affair, it wasn't just fluff to simply set things up. I mentioned time travel earlier, and that's woven into the game pretty prominently. God. You visit 4 different
Did people like time travel stories back then or no?
Levels, and the story takes various twists and turns along the way,
also, that
mostly
armor
involving the allegiances and well-being of your teammates.
There's nothing special about that armor.
Daikatana's big defining feature, AI-controlled bots that fought alongside you. This was mostly unheard of at the time.
And
2 intelligent NPCs that followed the player for the entire game that would also help you solve puzzles, and if they died in a level, it would also result in a game over?
No way.
What could go wrong with
Reminds me of Gears of War 1, everything. Yep, they're gonna...
If the AI wasn't great, which it wasn't, for being one of Daikatana's main
it's going to run
hooks,
into...
It was a disaster for Ion Storm to not nail this aspect of the design. Your buddies would often be the cause of unavoidable game overs, would get stuck on level geometry, and a bevy of other issues. While this was a definite problem, it only compounded things because of the rest of the game couldn't really make up for it. The graphics were still outdated in 2000. Ho-hum shooting mechanics and lots more bugs and glitches hampered the game overall.
That's a problem.
When it comes down to it, though, it all boils down to hype being one of the most negative factors that impacted Big Sword. The game had been delayed so
what's the purpose of a
times,
sword being
making so many
like that?
E3 appearances, with each one being less and less impressive as time went on. It really did seem like Romero's ambition was outpacing the need to actually ship the game. Sure, there were legit technological reasons for a lot of those delays, with the engine switch taking months and months of additional time.
At least the engine works on
it seems like
the console, unlike
what was that?
The most, Sonic Boom?
Stripping out features and cutting content to make sure the game ships. So all these delays just made it worse. Oh man, when this thing finally comes out, it's gonna blow our fucking
There's
minds,
probably so many people that
though.
were super excited
But
about
wasn't
it.
going to. It was a pretty standard FPS with some ambition in the storytelling and some neat features, but it was never designed
whatever,
to
just
be
turn
much
around.
more than that. It just took too long to come out. Now, up until this point, we've been exclusively talking about the PC version. Yes, as strange as it seems,
the Game Boy Color
N64
version?
port also came out
Oh.
day and day with Ion Storm's version, and even stranger still, it was a port handled by Japanese publisher Kemco. This version
Why does that name sound familiar?
weird and feels like a slower paced fan mod than anything else.
Oh, that's
As
not what you want
expected,
out of
it
your
also has
big
dramatically
release.
scaled back cutscenes with no voiceovers, missing levels, horrible looping music for each time period.
Oh.
And something I only found out during the making of this video was a Blockbuster exclusive rental for
Why?
months.
Why?
Yeah, you couldn't
What?
even buy the goddamn thing until Christmas of that year. In which case, you'd be pretty pissed if this was under your tree at that
Wait,
point.
so you could
Kemco
rent
had
the game,
no
but you
faith in
couldn't
the brand
buy it
anymore, and that's
from
why the
Blockbuster?
aforementioned and
Before it came out?
incomprehensible Game Boy Color version.
Yeah, Game
never
Boy
saw
Color's
release
crazy.
in North America.
Aw,
I mean,
I wonder how much those
why
go for.
bother? When the main game is bombing as hard as it was, who'd give a hot fuck about playing a Game Boy version of it?
Everyone.
That being
know.
said, this port is a curio in the purest sense
Honestly,
of the word,
is this
as it's actually a
better?
top-down action RPG
Yeah.
akin to Zelda. Apparently,
Yeah, like, that
Romero
doesn't seem
requested the game
bad.
to be designed this way, as he felt it would be a better fit for the handheld. It even reviewed
It kind
pretty
of seems
well.
like it, maybe.
Huh. At least that's kind of neat. So,
Yeah, like, that doesn't look terrible.
now's the point in the video where
How
we
is the Game Boy
basically
Color
point
version
to
the best version?
WrestleMania sign for an awkward amount of time.
Can't say I've ever watched wrestling.
There it is. Soak it all in.
What?
While a lot of blame can be
Wait,
laid at
what?
Romero's
Is that the
feet
name
for
of the
actual
game?
development of Daikatana, this is not one of those things. A marketing sleazeball, let's call him Paul, was hired to generate more hype
He looks
for the
like a Paul.
game, and he pitched this infamous advert to Romero by saying it would make a lot of waves and be something called edgy.
Yeah, I was about to say
Romero
edgy.
thought at the time
I mean,
it
it
was
is.
risky and had some serious doubts.
Oh,
but still
okay,
gave
bro
it the
had
green
second
light
thoughts.
nonetheless.
I mean,
Not
okay,
only was
but
this a classless advertisement, it wasn't really selling or advertising the game, just the idea of
Yeah,
it.
it honestly
More
seemed like a
accurately,
concert
its
poster.
director, since there wasn't really much footage of Daikatana in 1997.
It's not like he's
and
like a
98,
household name
mostly
either.
because
Maybe back then he
the
was.
game
I don't
barely
know. Doom was a big deal.
This is all they had to work with. And hey, that marketing guy, would you believe, was fired shortly after this
okay.
advertisement came out.
Was that his first marketing job by
That's
chance?
just crazy. Romero has given several interviews throughout the years apologizing for the ad and saying it was a mistake. So
Okay, was
good
it
on
that
him
bad?
for
Where
owning up
did
to
they
the
put
thing
the
that
ad?
was
Did they put it in
bad.
magazines?
Let's all move
Did they put it on billboards?
Now,
Like,
at this point,
there's
Ion
rules against
Storm
that,
had
right?
lost a lot of money on Daikatana Big Sword when it failed to sell
Pyramid Head?
billion units.
I don't know anything
projected
about Silent
to.
Hill, but I
the
know
year
Pyramid Head
2000 had at
terrified
least
me.
one bright spot.
I don't know
The
why, I
company
think it
had a sister office
saw
in
a
Austin,
meme or something
Texas,
about it.
which produced a little thing called Deus Motherfucking X, or just Deus Ex for short.
Oh, well.
Romero and Hall had
I
nothing
couldn't tell
to
you
do
anything
with
about
the
that one.
title, as it was the brainchild of Warren Spector and Harvey Smith, and of course would win several Game of the Year awards.
Nice.
But unfortunately only sold modestly well, and it wasn't enough to save the
Oh,
company.
I thought that was a deer
Romero
for a
and
second. I'm
Hall
like, why is
left
there a
in
deer in there?
2001, and their Dallas office was closed down. But the Austin one soldiered on.
Wait,
and
so they had an
produced
office in
Invisible
Dallas and
War
one in
and the third game
Austin?
of the franchise
It's like
for
3 hours
iOS.
apart.
So at least they went out with some decent titles before finally closing up shop in 2005.
Okay, they stayed in business for
Romero
a
would
while.
have a very tumultuous and checkered history of the next few years
Of
as
doing
he joined
what?
up with Flophouse favorite Midway Games and became
Wait,
the project
I
lead
know-
on Gauntlet 7 Sorrows.
I've
Midway's
heard of Midway
sad
Games for
attempt to
some
reboot
reason.
the Gauntlet franchise and get away from all that annoying, fun arcade fantasy roots that everyone loved.
I don't know
The
what
game
game that's
is
supposed
almost
to look
worthy to get its own episode of What Happened.
What, did he
But
ever do
I
that?
don't want to.
Oh,
the one
okay.
thing I will expand upon is that development on
God, this
Gauntlet
reminds me of
was
Devil
so
May Cry. I'm
rocky,
playing through Devil May
Romero would
Cry
leave the
right
team
now. I'm-
months before the
Should've
game was
started Devil
even
May Cry 2 on
close to being
Saturday.
finished, and Midway would
And it is-
remove the characters he created specifically for the title. Damn.
That's rough.
Ever since then, Johnny R would bounce around between mobile development, starting up smaller companies, closing them again, and
how many tries?
Hired from
how many attempts do you get?
Only to now do
start a company?
interviews about the good old days when he was on top of the world. Like I said before, though,
helping make Doom.
I honestly feel that Daikatana received overly harsh criticism because expectations were so high, as well as people
No Man's Sky
being pissed
level stuff
about that blindingly red magazine advert.
Oh,
It's
it was
not
a
good
magazine.
game,
Okay.
you know, for sure. But if it had
wonder how much they
managed
spent
to
on that.
somehow come out at the end of '97, I don't think it would have received the critical drubbing.
Oh yeah, if it was
3 years later
yeah.
in mid 2000, where sadly it became the entire
but maybe
game industry
less people would have
bitch.
known about it.
Until Duke Nukem Forever came along. Hey, if you know of any other gargantuan gaming grenades
what
that
is that
exploded
game?
in a spectacular explosion of failure, let me know in the comments below or hit me up
Hagar.
at McMuscles
what is that?
@gmail.com.
Oh wow, just straight
Thanks
up
for
put in the
watching.
email. That's sick. Yeah, I love these videos. The original video is linked down below in the description, of course. There's also Flophouse, which I believe he has a Patreon. I have a Patreon as well. I literally could not do this if it was not for the patrons. But this was Big Sword. What happened? Did we even see a big sword in this video? Wow. Wow. What does the big sword look like? Why? See, JonTron did a video on it, and nobody ever told me that I should check it out. I've never seen this thumbnail before, but if for some reason it's part 1, it also has 4 million views. So it's probably the old school JonTron video where he's like mostly doing like gaming content and stuff, which I've reacted to a couple of those. They're on my channel. There's a JonTron playlist. Wow. But this is another one happened. Let me know what the next one should be. I do read every single one in your comments. Leave them down below. Also, I hope that you were subscribed to one of those future videos, and I hope I was able to make your day just a tiny little bit better. But until the next video, take care and keep the music.